There are love stories that fade with time, lost in the pages of history. But then there are those rare, timeless romances that defy all logic. They don't just survive, they thrive, reaching across years, continents, and even lifetimes. This is the story of a love that wasn't meant to be, yet could not be denied. A love that broke barriers, challenged fate, and reshaped the very notion of what it means to be truly connected. Meet Clara, a talented young artist living in a small, bustling city. Her life, filled with dreams and uncertainties, was about to take a turn she never saw coming. She lived in a world where everything seemed to be just a little bit out of reach. Her career, her aspirations, and her heart. That is, until she met Ethan. Ethan, a mysterious traveler whose past seemed to follow him like a shadow, was the kind of man who made everyone around him question what they thought they knew about love. When he first crossed Clara's path, there was no instant spark, no dramatic moment of recognition. Yet something in the way he looked at her, in the way his voice carried a hint of unspoken words, ignited a curiosity that Clara couldn't ignore. They didn't belong to the same world. She was grounded in her city, her life, and her carefully planned future, while he was a wanderer, searching for answers to questions even he didn't fully understand. But as their paths intertwined, a deep connection began to form, one that neither could explain but both felt with an intensity that couldn't be shaken. Clara knew that falling for Ethan would mean embracing the unknown, stepping into a life that defied everything she had ever believed in. But what Clara didn't know was that Ethan was hiding something, a secret so powerful, so life-altering, that it could change the course of their love forever. As they stood on the brink of something extraordinary, Clara felt the pull of destiny and the weight of a choice that would tear her apart. Would she take the leap, trusting in the love they shared, or would fear keep her tethered to the life she thought she wanted? The answer would come when they least expected it. But for now, one question loomed over them both. Could their love really survive, no matter what stood in their way? Clara couldn't help but replay the moments she had spent with Ethan, each one more vivid than the last. His laugh, the way he seemed to listen to her as if no one else existed in the room, the way his eyes held a depth that suggested he carried more than just his own past. There were days when she felt like she knew him, and others when she realized that she was only scratching the surface of who he really was. But it was those moments of connection, those fleeting moments where their worlds seemed to blend, that kept drawing her back to him. Yet, as much as she wanted to believe that their bond was something magical, Clara couldn't shake the nagging feeling that Ethan was keeping something from her. It was in the little things, his refusal to talk about his past, the way his expression would darken when certain topics came up, the long silences that felt like there was so much more unsaid. She couldn't ignore it, no matter how much she wanted to. She found herself questioning everything she knew about him. Was he hiding something dangerous? Or was it a past so painful that it threatened to consume him if anyone ever got too close? Either way, it was clear that this wasn't just a simple love story. It was something bigger, something with the power to unravel both of their lives. One evening, after a quiet dinner, Ethan asked Clara to meet him at the old bridge by the river, a place that had become their secret spot, where they could escape the world and just be themselves. But this time, as she made her way toward the bridge, she felt an odd sense of unease in the air. The weight of the unknown hung over her, thick with unspoken tension. When she arrived, Ethan wasn't there yet, but there, waiting for her in the shadows, was a letter. It was addressed to her, but it wasn't from Ethan. Clara stood frozen, staring at the letter in her hands, the faint sound of the river rushing in the background. It was strange, There was something unsettling about the way it was folded, as if someone had carefully placed it there just for her. Her heart raced as her fingers trembled slightly while unfolding the crisp paper. The words were simple, yet they hit her like a storm. Clara, you don't know him. Not really. Be careful. No signature, no explanation, just a cryptic warning that seemed to slice through the warmth she had once felt for Ethan. She held the letter up to the dim light of the lanterns by the bridge, trying to make sense of it. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the message was clear. Someone was trying to tell her that Ethan wasn't who he claimed to be. The thought gnawed at her insides. Could Ethan really be hiding something so dangerous? But why? What was he keeping from her? And why had no one told her before? Just then, a rustling noise broke her thoughts. Clara quickly turned toward the sound, her heart leaping into her throat. Ethan stepped out of the shadows, his face unreadable. His usual warm smile was gone, replaced with an expression that made Clara's stomach twist. I see you found the letter, he said, his voice calm, but with an edge that Clara hadn't heard before. He stepped closer, but Clara instinctively took a step back. You, you left this for me? Her voice shook, more from the tension in the air than from fear. Ethan didn't answer immediately. He seemed to weigh his words carefully, as if deciding how much to say. There are things about me, about my past, that you're not ready to understand, he said, his gaze never leaving hers. But you need to trust me. This isn't a warning. It's a threat. Someone is trying to tear us apart. Clara's mind spun. Who would want to do that, and why? Ethan's face tightened, his jaw clenching. There are people I've crossed paths with, people who will stop at nothing to get what they want. And now they've found you. You're in danger because of me, Clara, because of what we have. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, thick and suffocating. Clara's heart hammered in her chest. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that the man she had fallen for wasn't a danger to her. But every instinct told her there was more to this story, more she wasn't seeing. She looked at the letter again, its message now feeling like a cold warning she couldn't ignore. Ethan, Clara started, but she couldn't finish. The words stuck in her throat. She didn't know what to believe anymore. The silence between them stretched, filled only with the rushing sound of the river and the pounding of her heart. She had to make a choice, but how could she? What if trusting him meant walking into something darker than she could ever imagine? Ethan's eyes softened, as if he could read the conflict in her gaze. Please, Clara, he said quietly. I know this is hard, but you have to believe me. I'm not the enemy here. But was he? And if not him, who? Clara's mind was racing, her thoughts tangled in a mess of confusion and doubt. Ethan's words were spinning in her head, but none of it felt real. How could she believe him now? The letter, the warning, it all felt like too much. But the way he looked at her, the desperation in his eyes, made her question everything. Ethan, I need to know what's going on. Who are these people? What are you involved in? Her voice came out softer than she intended, filled with both fear and frustration. She could feel her knees weakening beneath her, as if the weight of the situation was finally starting to take its toll. She wasn't sure if she could keep going like this, trapped between what she felt and what she feared. Ethan took a step closer, his eyes intense but soft, as if trying to hold on to something that was slipping away. I can't tell you everything, Clara. Not yet. But if you don't leave now, if you don't get out of here, things are going to get much worse. For both of us. A cold shiver ran down Clara's spine. Her instinct told her to run, to escape this moment before it consumed her. But her heart refused to let go. She had come too far with him. There was something real between them, something undeniable. But what if that connection was built on lies? What if the man she had fallen for was hiding a truth so dangerous that it would destroy everything they had? As she opened her mouth to speak, a loud crash echoed through the darkness. Clara spun around, her breath catching in her throat. From the shadows of the trees came two figures, walking toward them with purposeful steps. Clara's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know who they were, but the cold, calculating look in their eyes told her everything she needed to know. They weren't friends. Ethan's expression hardened. His jaw clenched as he moved instinctively to stand in front of Clara, blocking her from their view. "Run," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound of her thundering pulse. "Now." Clara's world seemed to freeze. She wanted to move, to flee, but her legs were frozen in place. She looked at Ethan, seeing the raw fear in his eyes. Fear for her, fear for them both. The figures were closing in fast, and her pulse quickened with every step they took. Suddenly, one of the strangers stepped forward, a tall man with dark hair and a sharp, unsettling smile. "It's too late for running, Ethan," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You've made your choice. Now she'll pay for it." Clara's breath hitched, her body stiffening. She didn't understand what was happening, but she could feel the weight of the danger closing in around her. There was no way out now, no escape from whatever this was. Ethan's grip tightened on her arm as he pulled her closer, his face taut with tension. "Clara, stay behind me. Don't—" But before he could finish, the stranger's voice cut through the air, filled with menace. "You think she can protect you, Ethan? She doesn't even know what she's gotten into." Clara's heart raced faster, the words sinking in like ice. What was happening? What had she gotten herself into? And most importantly, who could she trust when everything around her seemed to be falling apart? Clara's heart pounded in her chest as the man's words lingered in the air. The stranger's smile was cruel, a knowing look in his eyes that made her skin crawl. Every instinct told her to run, but she was rooted to the spot, caught in a whirlwind of fear and confusion. Ethan's grip on her arm tightened, and she could feel his muscles tense beneath his coat, like a man preparing for something he had no control over. The man's voice sliced through the tension again. "You really don't understand, do you, Ethan? You thought you could outrun this, outrun them, but you're just digging a deeper hole, and now she's involved." Clara glanced at Ethan, searching his face for any sign of what was happening, but he looked just as lost as she felt. His eyes were wide with a mix of anger and desperation, but there was something else there, too. Something darker. "Who are you?" Clara demanded, her voice trembling. "What do you want from us?" The man let out a small, mocking laugh. "What do I want? I want what's rightfully mine, and you're standing in the way, sweetheart." Before Clara could respond, the second figure, a woman with sharp features and a cold expression, stepped forward. Her eyes flickered from Ethan to Clara, assessing her as if she were some kind of pawn. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," she said in a voice as cold as ice. "Ethan's past is much darker than you could ever imagine. And you—" She turned her gaze to Clara, her lip curling into a smirk. "You're in way over your head." Clara's stomach twisted. She had trusted Ethan, believed in him with all her heart, but now, with these strangers standing before her, her trust seemed to be crumbling. Ethan took a step forward, his face hardening. "This isn't how I wanted you to find out, Clara," he said quietly, his voice betraying a hint of regret. "I never wanted you to be part of this world, but it's too late now." Clara blinked, the shock of his words hitting her like a punch to the gut. "What do you mean?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, as if saying the words aloud would somehow make them too real. Before Ethan could explain further, the woman raised a hand, signaling for silence. Enough talk. It's time to settle this. We've already let it go on long enough. Clara barely had time to process the meaning behind her words before she heard the sound of something metallic slicing through the air. In an instant, the woman reached into her coat and pulled out a gleaming curved knife. The moonlight reflected off the blade, casting an eerie glow across her cold expression. Clara's breath caught in her throat. What is happening? She couldn't fathom how quickly everything had escalated. One minute, they were sharing quiet moments together, and the next, her life was hanging by a thread. Ethan, Clara whispered, her voice shaky with fear. What is this? Who are they? He didn't answer immediately, his eyes locked on the strangers before them. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides, his jaw set. Then, finally, he turned to her, his voice low, almost like he was speaking to himself as much as to her. They're part of the past I thought I left behind. But they won't let me go, Clara. And now they want you. The words hit Clara like a tidal wave. She had thought Ethan was running from something personal, something he could handle. But this was something far worse than she had ever imagined. They weren't just after him, they were after her. Why? What do they want with me? Clara's voice was barely audible, but the fear in it was unmistakable. The man in the shadows stepped closer, his gaze never leaving her face. You're the key to Ethan's downfall, sweetheart. The moment you're gone, everything will fall into place. He can't hide from us any longer. Ethan's body went rigid, his breath shallow. Don't listen to them, Clara. You have to trust me. They're lying. But Clara wasn't sure anymore. How could she? What if Ethan was hiding even darker truths? Truths that these strangers were about to expose? What if this was all a lie? The knife in the woman's hand glinted in the moonlight, and Clara felt a chill creep down her spine. She wasn't just in danger. She was part of something much bigger than she had ever imagined. Something that could unravel her life in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. Ethan's eyes locked with hers, his expression pleading, desperate. Clara, please, we don't have much time. You have to trust me. Don't let them win. The air crackled with tension as the moment stretched on, each second feeling heavier than the last. The danger surrounding them was closing in, but Clara couldn't bring herself to make a move. She was torn between the man she thought she knew and the terrifying possibility that everything she believed in was a lie. And then, just as the tension reached its peak, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed from behind them, further shattering the fragile silence. Clara's heart raced as the footsteps grew louder, the tension in the air thickening with every passing second. Ethan's eyes darted toward her, a silent plea for her to trust him. But Clara could barely focus on him anymore. Her thoughts were a chaotic blur, each one more terrifying than the last. Who were these people? What did they want from her? The knife gleamed in the woman's hand, and every instinct told her to run. But there was no way out. As the footsteps drew closer, the figures from the shadows seemed to freeze. A new presence had arrived, someone she hadn't seen before. A man emerged from the dark, his figure tall and broad, his movements calm but determined. His eyes were sharp, but his gaze softened the moment they landed on Clara. Enough, Anna. You're not gonna hurt her. The man's voice boomed, sending a ripple of surprise through the group. The woman holding the knife hesitated, her hand tightening around the hilt, but she didn't move any closer. Ethan's eyes widened. You're here? The man nodded, stepping forward. I had to come. I didn't want to, but I couldn't let it go on any longer. Clara's confusion deepened. Who are you? She asked, barely able to keep the tremor from her voice. The man's gaze softened as he looked at her. I'm the one who's been trying to protect you both, and now it's time to end this. Anna scoffed, lowering the knife slightly, but still holding it defensively. You think you can stop this, James? The past never lets go. You know that better than anyone. James, so that's who he was, looked between Ethan and the strangers, his expression hardening. I know the truth now, Anna, and I'm not running anymore. Ethan and Clara are out of this. It ends tonight. Clara's head was spinning, and the words from the strangers felt like a puzzle she couldn't piece together. Protect? Protect me from what? Just then, a sharp, ear-piercing sound sliced through the night, a gunshot. It echoed across the bridge, a noise so loud it seemed to freeze time. Clara gasped, her body instinctively flinching as the sound bounced off the trees. Ethan's eyes went wide, and before anyone could react, James's body jerked backward, a thin trickle of blood spreading from his chest. He collapsed onto the ground with a sickening thud. Clara screamed, her heart tearing as she watched James fall, his face contorted in pain, his hand clutching his chest. Anna looked down at him, her eyes cold and distant, as if nothing had happened. The man who had shot James stepped forward, his face hidden beneath a dark hood. He looked down at Clara, his eyes dark and unreadable. You're still in this, Clara, and I'm here to make sure you understand why. Clara's world tilted. Was this the end? Had everything been a lie? As she stood there, unable to comprehend the scene unfolding before her, one thing became clear. The danger wasn't over. Clara stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest as the hooded figure stepped forward, his eyes cold and calculating. The air was thick with tension, and she could barely breathe as the weight of everything that had happened pressed down on her. Ethan's life had just been shattered by this man's arrival, and Clara wasn't sure what would come next. The hooded man's voice was low and deliberate. You don't understand, Clara. This was always part of the plan. Ethan's past was never meant to stay buried. You were the final piece in a dangerous game. Clara's mind raced. She wanted to run, but her legs felt like lead. The pieces of the puzzle had finally started to come together, and the truth hit her like a thunderclap. Ethan wasn't just running from enemies. He had been protecting her from something far more dangerous. But now it seemed that the people who had been hunting him had found her too. Just as she prepared to turn away, Ethan, bloodied but still alive, reached for her hand. Clara, don't listen to him. They want to tear us apart. They won't stop until they get what they want. But I won't let them take you. The hooded figure's expression hardened. You can't protect her, Ethan. You never could. In that moment, everything changed. Clara, with newfound strength, stepped forward, determined not to let fear control her anymore. We've come too far to let you destroy everything, she said firmly, her voice steady. The hooded man hesitated, his eyes flickering with something like uncertainty. But before he could act, the sound of sirens filled the air, signaling the arrival of the authorities. The game was over. In the days that followed, Clara and Ethan were finally free from the shadows of the past. The truth had been revealed, and while their journey had been far from easy, they had found a way to rebuild their lives together, stronger, wiser, and united in a love that had withstood the darkest of storms.